Welcome into Sportsmemo's college basketball betting podcast. We're going to hit on some Friday night games, then turn to the Saturday card. Huge Saturday card with our college basketball betting expert. He is on fire. Brent Crow, welcome into the podcast. How are you?
Hey, Drew, that's right. It's been a great week so far. We had another winner last night, and it was not quite as easy last night as it was the night before last with Wyoming under by like 40 points, but we squeaked one by last night. With UCLA over, so we continued the streak and looking forward to the rest of the season.
Yeah, man, you're on a 5-0, 5% play streak. It's your last 5 plays, man. You've gone with big hitters, hit them all. So, yeah, that Wyoming game was awesome. Last night's did hit. So hot. You're hot. And, guys, we got a special coupon code for Brent Crow. It's 3-day all access. Give you college basketball here for the next 3 days for under $10 a day. That's BC3 at checkout for his 3-day all access for just $29. That coupon code is BC3 at checkout for his 3-day all access. 2 games on tonight's card, Brent, want to break down with you. We got Michigan at Indiana in the Big Ten. Looks like the Wolverines laying 4 on the highway, 133 the total in Bloomington.
Indiana comes in a really horrible streak. The Hoosiers have dropped 5 in a row, and one of those at home, 4 on the road. Now they're back at home against a Michigan team that all season long I thought Michigan was definitely a top 5 team. They had their first loss last Saturday against Wisconsin, bounced back on Tuesday with a 2-point home win over Minnesota, and it's not going to be easy today on the road against Indiana. I think you're going to see desperation from the Hoosiers here, and Michigan, they played so well for so long. They've struggled the last 2 games. Will it continue for a third game? I would be inclined to take a look at Indiana plus 4 here. I see a 4.5 out there now. I mean, it's going to be a low possession game, a low scoring game, so any points that you can get are going to be at a premium. And, I can see a 2-point game here.
All right, Brent, we got another game wanted to talk about on tonight's slate. Well, we got Butler at Creighton. This one, trying to pull up the lines here, Brent. We got 857, 858, 830 Eastern tip. 154.5 the total. Creighton minus 2.5 at home.
Yeah, I came really close to having this as a play, and I wound up, the number has fluctuated a little bit. It got down as low as I saw 151.5, and then immediately bet back up. I guess somebody was tinkering with the lines earlier this morning, but it got down to 152, and I think it was just, like I said, just a setup could be because it lasted like 3 minutes at 152 and then it started going up. And I think definitely the right side is the over here at 152. I'm probably going to make a play, but at 154.5, 155, I don't think it's really it's definitely not as strong. I mean, 152 is my cutoff on this play because I tell you what I've noticed with the Big East Conference, it seems like every team is sort of fast-paced a little bit, but they're all really good offensively. I mean, the conference as a whole, there's a lot of good offensive teams, and the defense is actually kind of lacking in Big East play. Butler's long regarded as one of the, you think about Butler, you think about defense. Well, they're giving up 107 points per 100 possessions, which is not very good. And they're 5th in the conference. So there has been a lot of games that get over the total in the Big East. The problem is the totals, especially when you talk about Creighton, which is a team that likes to play fast and high scoring, you get up in that 155 range. And, as you saw last night with UCLA and Arizona State, I mean, that game was up and down. It was 44-43 at halftime and barely got over it. I like to play – when I play overs – I like it in the 140 range, or a lot better than the 150 range. I mean, you have any lull at all in a college basketball game, and it's hard to get over a 155 total. So, like I said, I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. But if you look at Butler, they don't really run up and down the court. It's just that their offense has been really good, and the defense hasn't been good. So you see a lot of games in the 151, 152, 149 range, and with Creighton, you've seen a little bit more high-scoring games with the Blue Jays. They still they're the number one team in the country in effective field goal percentage. They're number 4 in three-point percentage. They definitely can score. Their defense also a little bit shoddy, and they had a 4-game stretch where they gave up at least 40 or 81 points in all 4 games, all losses, and then turned it around with a win last time against Georgetown. They still gave up 87 in that one, so definitely a lean to the over here.
And Brent, when you say someone was tinkering with the line, just I guess for guys that are a little bit newer to betting, that's just a big a big better, a big syndicate, just kind of betting it down, maybe at like $500 a pop until it goes to the point where they like, and then the limits get raised, and then they go in for a lot more money on the over. Is that usually how it works, or can you explain that a little bit better?
Yeah, that's definitely what happens. I mean, we do it sometimes as well. I mean, when you've got low limits, you can move numbers with low amounts and then come in on the other side. I mean, if you can move the line for a point or a point and a half for 1,000 or whatever, and then bet 5,000 on the other side. I mean, sometimes it's worth it. And I think that's probably the case here. Although, it looks like there's a little bit of money on the under here at 156, because this, if you just look at this number last night, it opened at 156. It was bet down to like 153. 152 and a half, 153, and then this morning it gets bet down to 152, back up to 156, and then back to 154. That's definitely 2 groups doing that here. It's not just one group that's manipulating it, but I would think that probably what happened was whoever wanted to bet it to go over the total, may have bet it down to 152, 151 and a half, and then they, whenever that was the line stabilized at that point. Like I said, it lasted 3 minutes, and it went all the way to 156 or 156 and a half. But then somebody came back in, like I said, probably somebody else, and bet it under. So, there's been quite a bit of action on this one.
All right, Brent, good breakdown there on the Friday night slate. Thanks for explaining that line move there. And, guys, we're going to hit some Saturday games here. We got 4 lined up. We'll also bring in Robbie Vino to hit some more Saturday games as well. Appreciate y'all reaching out on Twitter, letting us know what you want to talk about. I know we had some guys asking about Missouri. We'll have Robbie answer some questions there. Also, I believe Western Kentucky as well, so we'll get him on that. Brent, just anything off the top of your head? Do you have anything on the Western Kentucky college basketball team? If not, that's totally fine.
Western Kentucky?
Yeah. Have you been looking to bet on them or fade them at all?
Western Kentucky has been, to me, a disappointment. They've had games where, as far from a side perspective, they've had some losses where you shook your head, and then they've also had some good wins. So they've been inconsistent. And from a betting standpoint, I look for consistent teams that I can count on. Okay, they're going to play fast every game, or they're slow every game, or bad offense, or great offense, or whatever. And Western Kentucky's been, like I said, they've been all over the board. And then from a total perspective, I mean, there were some games early in or about mid-season where they were higher scoring, but then conference play started, and they really focused on defense. And also the offense has not been very efficient. So, they play at Louisiana Tech tomorrow night. Western Kentucky's won 3 straight. They've all been low scoring. They're playing a Louisiana Tech team that's the number 1 team in Conference USA defensively, that I thought last night had a really good effort against Marshall for most of the game. And I actually had bet it under, and it wound up going over in overtime. But, like I said, Western Kentucky has just been so inconsistent. I haven't been on them very much. But, if this total's in the 137, 138 range tomorrow, I'd probably look at played it under.
All right, good stuff there, Brent. And guys, we're going to hit on these Saturday cards. Got the numbers aren't out yet. We're talking about noon Eastern time right now with Brent. So this is the numbers won't be out for a couple hours. So we're just going to go off of some Ken Palm numbers and see what Brent thinks the number should be. We got 705, 706, a big game here. Brent, Kansas at Kentucky, primetime game. There's going to be a lot of tickets written on this game. It's part of the Big 12 SEC Challenge. And Ken Palm has it Kentucky winning at home 73-69. That would point towards the Wildcats being -4 at home with a total of 142. Seeing those numbers, what does that make you look towards? And overall thoughts on betting Kansas-Kentucky, Brent?
Right now, Kentucky's playing as well as they have all year. They've done it defensively. This Ashton Hagans, they've kind of turned him loose. Somebody said last night he's been a one-man press, and it's really made a difference with Kentucky defensively. I mean, you look at what they've done in three of their last 4 games, they've held their opponents below 55 points. The only exception was on the road against Auburn in that 82-80 win there. But like I said, defensively, Kentucky's long. They're getting some good ball pressure from Hagans, and athletically, probably nobody in the SEC matches up with Kentucky. I mean, that's the case every year. And, it seems like Calipari has really got them focused on playing defense. And, they're number one in the SEC right now in defense. They're 5-1, playing well. And now they're facing a Kansas team that, they've kind of slipped a little bit lately. Kansas got off to a 10-0 start, but they've dropped 3 games. Had a road loss to West Virginia. They kind of just fell apart in that one. But I've also noticed with Kansas, I mean, they're not quite as efficient offensively as they have been. They're only 5th in the Big 12 in offensive efficiency, and they missed their big guy, no question about that. And I think that hurts them here. I mean, they've just become such a perimeter-based team. I mean, we saw what they can do against Texas when they're hot. I mean, they scored 80 points against Texas in only 63 possessions, and it just with Kansas, it just seems like if they're hitting shots from 3, like they did against Texas, where they go 11 of 22. I mean, they can beat anybody, but I think in terms of where they're at right now, where Kentucky is right now, I like Kentucky a little bit, and also the way Kentucky's playing defense, I like it under. I mean, it's scary to bet under against Kansas. You saw it against Iowa State in their last one. They scored 80 at home. I mean, they're certainly capable. They play fast enough normally, but for some reason, I think this will be a grinded-out game with both teams in the 60s.
All right, good stuff there, Brent. Yeah, I agree with you on the Ashton Hagans thing. It's crazy how important it is in college basketball defense for your point guard to be very good at defending steals and just being a good on-ball defender on the opposing team's point guard, and how big of a difference it makes. And that just really points towards Kentucky's success so far. Brent, we got another one out west. Washington, Oregon State. 669, 670. Washington at Oregon State. Ken Palm has it. Oregon State actually winning 67-66. This one surprised me a little bit. So we got the Beavers. That would point towards a -1 home favorite with a total of 133, Brent.
These may be the 2 best teams in the Pac-12. I mean, I would have not thought that at the beginning of the season, but Washington right now, 6-0. Washington's kind of benefited, though, from a weak schedule. I mean, their best conference win was their last one last night against Oregon, where they win 61-56 on the road. Prior to that, they had beaten California, Stanford, Washington State, Colorado, and Utah. So hadn't played the Arizona schools yet, hadn't played the LA schools yet, and just faced Oregon last night. And then you look at Oregon State. I've been impressed. I mean, Oregon State's always been, they've been weak offensively. It seems like they've had a lot of injuries lately, and they never really have put it together. But from watching them play this year, they have more talent offensively than they ever have. I mean, the Thompson brothers, Trey Tinkle, Kyler Kelly's come along really nicely at center. I mean, they've definitely got some talent this year. They're kind of still looking to play defense, but they're a little more wide open on offense. I mean, they're definitely not a running gun team, but a little more freedom offensively. And 4-2 so far. They beat both LA schools. They won at Oregon. Really, the only time they stumbled was on the road against Arizona and Arizona State. They came back last night with a win over Washington State. And, I mean, this is a team, for a lot of years, you saw Oregon State games, there was like 61-56 final scores. And all of a sudden now, I mean, they've they've been able to score, and it'll be a really interesting game against Washington here. Washington's still with their zone, with their length. I mean, they've been definitely tough defensively, but I would kind of lean a little bit Oregon State here. I mean, believe it or not, they're the number 2 offense in conference play, and I guarantee you it's been a long time since Oregon State's been the top 5 offensively in Pac-12 play. So, and like I said, and the reason is because they have players this year. So I'm looking for a good game here, and I think it's Oregon State at -1 would be the way I would play it.
Okay, so look to lay it here with the Beavers. Yeah, they have been surprising this year, no doubt about it, Brent. Hey, we got another Big 12 SEC Challenge game here, but before we get to it, Brent, just wanted to get your overall thoughts on betting these games. I mean, obviously an out-of-conference game in the middle of the season. A lot of them are big-time games, though, so it's not like, or at least I wouldn't put motivation as a question at all, but it's just kind of an interesting handicap in itself. Do you handicap them any different with these SEC teams playing in the Big 12 Challenge?
I think that, from a fan's perspective, I mean, there's some good opportunities. There's some interesting games like Kansas, Kentucky, and whatever. From the team's perspective, there's cases where like Alabama and Baylor, a win here really helps their. I think both of them probably in the last or the next 4 out or whatever you want to say. They're right on the bubble, so a win. An Alabama road win at Baylor certainly gives them an opportunity to strengthen their resume. But from a betting standpoint, which is really all I care about, I think you have to just look at the matchups. I mean, you've got, like we talked, Kansas, Kentucky should be more of a defensive battle. I don't think you can blanketly say, make a blanket statement about whether or not you should bet over, or bet home teams, or bet SEC or anything like that. I just think you have to look at it at each matchup independently. But I think that there are some opportunities. The only in general statement that I would make is that these teams are not familiar with one another. I mean, in conference play, a lot of times all the plays, all the tendencies of the players, but then you get in a non-conference situation that's in the middle of conference play. You just basically had a day or two to come up with a scouting report on these teams. So, in general, I would think most of the time they're going to be a point or two, maybe 4 higher scoring than a normal conference game. But again, I think the matchup's the most important thing.
Okay, yeah, you touched on it a little bit there at the end in your point being they're not familiar with each other in college basketball, because in college football, I would definitely say that favors the offense. But in college basketball, would you say the same thing? If with only a day or two to prepare, they're not recruiting to for the matchup against this opponent, and with only a day or two to prepare, you think that does favor the offense as well, right, Brent?
I think so. I think it definitely does.
Okay, and do you think there's any value here with maybe the betting, the odds makers and the betting markets not being in tune to that, so maybe looking towards betting the overs in the Big 12 SEC Challenge?
Well, like I said, I think, that's the general the way to approach it, but then again, you have to look at matchups. And like I said, with Kansas, Kentucky, I think that matchup is more of a defensive one, so it kind of goes out the window. But say, Iowa State, Mississippi, on the other hand, even though Iowa State's been playing good defense, and they're not familiar with Mississippi, and in games that tend to be not defensive matchups where the matchup is probably favors the offense a little bit. Just the fact that they're not familiar with one another favors the offenses even more in those games. Okay.
Great breakdown there, Brent. Thank you for explaining that. That could be useful tomorrow. But we got 699-700 Arkansas, Texas Tech, part of the Big 12 SEC Challenge. Looks like Ken Palm has it. Texas Tech 71, Arkansas 60. This one in Texas Tech. So Raiders -11, 131 the projected total.
And so here's one that I talked about Wednesday on the podcast with Missouri and Arkansas. And I talked about Arkansas being not as good offensively as people thought they were going to be, and not even as good as they were early in the seawhen they were playing cupcakes and able to get out and do a lot of get a lot of on ball or live ball turnovers and score that way. But in a half court situation, Arkansas has been terrible offensively. 51 points at home against Florida. The 65 points at home against Georgia Tech, and so when they face really good defenses, I think they're going to continue to struggle. And here's a situation where they're going to face a really, really good defense in Texas Tech. They're on the road, and Arkansas has that reputation of being a fast team and playing up tempo and whatever. But I thought the Missouri total it was 142, winds up being a final score of 72-60, goes under the total very easily, and I think that I was hoping Ken Palm has it 131 here. I would love to see a 134, 135 and play this one under, because I think Arkansas is really going to struggle on the road against Texas Tech with their offense. I mean, they're basically like I talked about Wednesday, a two-man team offensively, unless they can force turnovers and get easy looks, and that's not going to be the case against Texas Tech.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, God, it's almost like I'd love to find an Arkansas team total and bet it under, huh, Brent?
Yeah, that would probably be a good one, because, I mean, like I said, Texas Tech, I mean, you look at what they've done defensively since Chris Beard has arrived. I mean, right now they're number one in the nation in defensive efficiency. They're coming off 3 straight losses. I mean, all of a sudden, you're not pressing the panic button in Texas Tech, but hey, they need to win this one, and they're at home on their home court, where they're definitely going to make it tough for Arkansas to score.
Good stuff, Brent. Guys, coupon code BC3 at checkout for his 3-day all access for just $29. That's less than $10 a day. You'll get a Saturday card, a Sunday college basketball card as well. He's hit 5 straight 5% top-rated plays on a 4-0. 4 of those have been in the college basketball ranks, 1 in the NFL. So he's on a heater right now. Check it out, sportsmemo.com. Brent Crow for just $29, 3-day all access using the coupon code BC3 at checkout. Brent, last game up 701-702, Wichita State at UConn. Ken Palm has it 76-69, favoring the Huskies, so that would make UConn -7 favorites at home with a 145, the total, Brent.
Yeah, this is a tough year for Wichita State. 8-10 straight up, only 1-5 in conference play, and I mean, they're just so young. Marcus McDuffie's been solid as a senior, but they play a lot of freshmen, and they are really struggling to score right now. They've got a guy that's 2 for 30 from the 3-point line this year. Can you imagine 2 for 30?
No.
I mean, as a team, they're at 30% from the year from 3. It's even worse in conference play, 29%. I mean, they don't get to the free throw line, and they foul a lot. I mean, just all of your typical things that young teams do. And you look at their last 2 efforts, they had 41 points against South Florida in a loss on the road, and only 55 at home against Cincinnati in a win. Now they're going on the road to face a UConn team that they've kind of been, I don't know, they've been weird. They started the season off running and gunning, 75 possessions a game, and then they got to conference play and they slowed it down a little bit against South Florida, Central Florida, SMU, Cincinnati. Was an under game that went over in overtime. That was a game that I had that lost. And then the last 2 games, they're back to running and gunning. 77 possessions in a win against Tulsa, 74 in a win against Tulane in their last 2. So it's like, okay, are we going to start running again? I mean, Hurley actually said we're going to slow it down. And then I don't know what's happened the last 2 games, but I know that the opponent for Saturday, Wichita State likes to play slow, and again, they're just so inefficient offensively. Wichita State has really no choice. I mean, that's one thing that you always that you have to consider as well. When you have teams that can't score, they're going to play slow because they can't get shots. I mean, it's totally it goes hand in hand a little bit. I mean, every now and then you'll have a team that's going to play fast regardless of how bad they are offensively, like Florida International, but a lot of times, like I said, when you're struggling to score, you try to take more time and find better shots. And Wichita State's case, hadn't mattered. They just have not been able to get to score for the most part. So I look at this one, and I think that you're probably going to have a lower scoring game. I mean, Wichita State still plays decent defense. Connecticut plays decent defense. And, I mean, like I said, it's just not working on offense right now for Wichita State.
Brent, great breakdowns as always, guys. He's on a heater with the 5%ers. Likely have one on tomorrow's card. If not, might have more than one place. So the 3-day all access, a great bet with Brent Crow, and you can get a huge discount on that using the coupon code BC3 at checkout. You can get his 3-day all access for just $29, less than $10 a day. Brent, anything else you want to throw out to the listeners here on Friday before the weekend that might help them out in the betting boards?
Not really. I mean, like I said, we've been red hot finally in college basketball, and look to continue that this week. Yeah.
Absolutely, man. Keep it up. Have a great weekend, Brent. Thanks for the time, guys. We'll be back in about an hour, maybe two, with Rob Vino to break down some more Saturday college basketball games. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be right back.